our community, within people of color, and even more so, of course, within women of color. Every time these limiting beliefs would surface, I would speak about them openly on the podcast. During the discoveries of trying to understand my self-worth, I had a channeling session from Dari Luna, who explained to me that when it came to money, I was acting like a victim. And so it opened up a can of worms. It sent me down a journey where I understood that I needed to really learn about money. But I also needed to identify what money meant to me at the time and what I needed it to mean to me. So the vibe, the energy, the experience that I went through is I had to break up with money, and I had to take my time to develop a different type of relationship with money. And that relationship blossomed beautifully at the beginning of the year when I started the Abundance series. And I just went over my understanding that money isn't a dollar amount that exists in a bank account. It isn't a check amount. It is none of those things. It is an energy that we have the power to manifest and give birth to and bring into its full creation, which then turns into money in the bank or any type of sort of abundance that may flow into our life that doesn't necessarily have to be money in the bank. I began to explore these concepts deeper and deeper, and I found so much power in understanding that money isn't outside of me, money is within me. And that for me personally, being dependent on a check that is coming from outside of me is stemming from a deep programming, one that I call lack, where I believe that only other people have the power to create checks. When in actuality, whatever company, whatever founder, whatever CEO has created this idea that came from their head and then they gave birth to, they are the ones only capable of bringing in this type of abundance. And I had to be in seek of those people and pray and hope that I could generate some of their abundance and some of their wealth based on a monetary exchange. So once I began to work on my actual relationship with money, I finally came to the full understanding that I have the capabilities to manifest money for myself. Thus began my relationship towards really generating income that is based on what I can create week to week, month to month, year to year. And this was just the beginning of the development of our relationship. It was like we were in the dating stages. So today what I want to focus on is the backstory of how I got stock in the first place, where the road started, and where I'm at with it now. In the next coming months, I'm going to break this down with you so that you can see how obtainable a road like this is, how I dealt with it emotionally, and how I could have sabotaged myself throughout the last 7 years of this journey. I want to explain to you how I took $7,000 and turned them into $300,000, which is something that still blows my mind, but I'm starting to get much more comfortable in this realm, in this space, because I have been a student of it, going down the deep end and understanding absolutely everything I can about money, because I was beginning to understand that it was all good, that I was learning how to create money from an idea that I have and being able to manifest the money, turn my idea into actual money in the bank. But it was another thing to learn how to respect it, learn how to take care of it, and help the money expand. And this has been such a sacred relationship. I wanted to fully understand this relationship before I began to take you on this journey. And what my water fast gifted me was my test of, can I respect it? Can I take care of it? And will I take the actions necessary to make it expand in a way that is authentic to me, allowing for my intuitive voice to guide me, which I think that when it comes to money, it's even harder to trust your intuitive voice because we've never really developed a relationship with money. We're not taught this in school. For some of us, if we're lucky enough, we're taught about it at home. But for so many of us, our parents really don't have a relationship with money themselves. Not to mention the misconceptions that many people are still under when it comes to managing money. The biggest misconception being that we need to work for money and not fully understanding that instead of working for money, it is important to have money work for us. So let me take you back to 2012. This was the first time in my life that I was making real money, and I wanted to hold on to every single penny of it. And when I say hold on, I don't mean necessarily keep it in the bank. I mean, I didn't want the government to take any money. I didn't want the 401k to take any money. I didn't want to invest it. I was so deep in the lack mentality. I had just come off a job where sometimes I didn't have money to pay my phone bill. I was always late on certain bills. I was a hot mess. I wasn't generating enough income. $13 an hour, living in Los Angeles, working for a movie studio, not having the ability to depend on my parents, living with roommates, eating beans and tortillas every single night. I was underpaid and overworked. So when I landed this really big job and started making all of this money, I was heavily in lack mentality. The company, which was Netflix, let me know that they had stock options and if I wanted to buy in. And I was like, hell no, I'm not buying no stock. I didn't even understand what that was. So from the time I started till about 6 months, 7 months in, I didn't buy any stock. When stock options were open to me again, come the new year, all of my colleagues who had now become, closer acquaintances that I was learning so much from, were educating me on what stocks were and how much money they were making, and convinced me to take $200 a month and invest them in stock. This was one of the most difficult decisions I had to make at the time. In hindsight, I wish I would have taken a third of my check and invested it in stock. I would have probably been a millionaire. But instead, I just took $200 a month, which I am so grateful that I did that at the very least. I started to study Netflix stock. I started to obviously become heavily invested. Of course, working in the company also made me really understand the ins and outs of the company, and I believed in the company blindly. I knew that this was the future. I began to develop my confidence. The second year rolls around and I decide to double down on my money. So instead of $200 a month, I decide to go for $4. My investment totaled $7,000. This might sound like a big bulk of money, but it was cut up into pieces. So it was little by little. It wasn't like I took the chunk and invested it. I watched the market go up. I watched the market go down. I watched myself lose a job. I watched hard times fall upon me. But the one thing I did not do was sell. Nor did I count on the money, nor did I depend on it. I never thought, well, I could always use that money. I always knew that I wasn't going to remove the money out of desperation. And I think looking back in hindsight and intuitively, I also knew that I needed a lot of relationship work with money before I even decided to take the money out and begin handling it in a different way. Fast forward 7 years later, and I'm doing my water fast, and my intuition tells me, you're going to sell a part of your stock. I was like, hell no. I was so scared to do that for many reasons. There was a part of my ego that kept stepping in. Like, if I sell right now, I could potentially lose out on making so much more money. I need to stay in the game. I need to stay in the game. The other part of me was scared on how I would handle the money once I already had it. Although my intuition was clear, calm, and collected, telling me, you're going to sell. You're going to sell. You're going to sell. I couldn't. It was the middle of the night. Everyone in my home was asleep, and I was a button away from selling a third of my stock. And I told my intuition, I prayed to source, I prayed to God, I prayed to everyone, my ancestors, everyone. I said, if I am supposed to do this, if I am supposed to make this move, I need you to show me, because I don't have what it takes to do this. I clicked out of my E-Trade account where I sell my stock. I closed my phone, and I see two numbers repeating themselves on the time it was and the amount of percentage I had on my phone. When I asked for God to show me a sign, I was under the notion that God would take the next couple of days to speak to me. I didn't think it would happen immediately. I went forward to check the meaning of the numbers, and the message was there, loud and clear. It was spelled out for me. I went back on to E-Trade, and I sold a third of my stock. Why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you all of this because I think it is really important for me to be transparent in areas where I am educating myself in ways that are going to create expansion. Most especially in this area, because most of us in our community are not taught about investments. I'm definitely not a financial person. There are amazing financial people out there. There's so much information on the internet that you can research. I'm sure if you were to tell somebody that I sold based on angel numbers, that person would think I am crazy. So I'm not telling you to follow my financial advice per se. I just want to make you more comfortable with the idea of investing if you're not already, and walk you down the journey that I'm walking down, because I'm learning to respect my money and I'm learning to make it grow. And part of that for me involves risk, and the other part involves safety. And while I set the intention for abundance in 2019, I didn't imagine it would flow in this way. I thought it would be something that was more magical. I'd never had my stocks in mind. As I listened to my intuition and agreed to the idea of selling a third of my stock, I was rewarded. I was rewarded with drive, passion, and clarity when it came to money in ways that I had never understood money before. I explored almost every single avenue you can think of on what exactly I would do with this money. I cashed out on $100,000, which was a really big deal. To try and say that this is an anomaly, to try and say that this can't happen to anyone, to try and say that this scenario was special because of the situation I was in, could be true for some people, but also white men are capitalizing on this every single day. And so there's no reason why we can't start making moves in the same direction. There's a few things that I want you to know. Come every first of the month, I'm going to give you updates on how I'm doing with my intention for abundance, because the intentions that I place for expansion are not just for me to reap that expansion, but it's also to share the information that I'm learning. The first thing I want you to understand is that anyone with a bank account, $10, and the internet can buy stock. You don't have to invest a lot of money. We hear so much about passive income. Oh, you can build this workshop, you can build this course, and you're generating passive income. But the reality of this is that there's two real ways to make passive income. That's the stock market and real estate. And if we don't play either of these games, if we don't get comfortable in either of these games, then we're never going to get a chance to go up to bat or even join a team. Instead, we won't even know that there's a game going on. Or worse, we know that there's a game going on and all we're doing is sitting on the bleachers. And I don't want that for us, most especially because I went up to bat. And if you ask me, going from investing $7,000 in 2 years to looking at my money increase as high as $305,000 is mind-blowing. And we have a right to play in this game. We have a right to be on this field. It's just that we don't get to see our peers doing it. We don't get to have these types of conversations often because this isn't a subject matter that we are taught. And so that's why I find it so important for me to talk to you about this. I have literally been going out of my mind for the last 3 weeks. And I want to show you what I've learned. I want to share with you what I've learned. Before you go out and make any rash decisions and dump a bunch of money into stocks or make any crazy moves, I want you to really harness that energy and that desire. I think there are 3 important steps that I want to encourage you to take before we go deeper into this road. The first step is I want you to be very clear on where your relationship with money is and how you feel towards money. Do you get anxiety when you open your bank account? Do you check your bank account? Do you know how much money you're really bringing in? And do you know if you're living within your means? It is so important to get clear with who you're in a relationship with, and if your relationship is toxic or if it's healthy. So the first thing I want you to do, be honest with yourself and your relationship with money. Because if you're not honest with yourself, your relationship with money will never improve. You'll never be able to trust money. You'll be deceitful with money. You'll use money. You'll be abusive with money. And in turn, you'll begin to develop a relationship with money where you feel it's money's fault and you won't take responsibility with what is actually taking place. I wish that I would have taken responsibility a long time ago because I would have been in a much better place. Instead, here I am at 39 years old, barely understanding my relationship with money, developing one. And it's kind of late in the game. But that doesn't mean that I can't still hit a home run. And I personally feel like I've already hit one. And I believe that the more I practice, the more I learn, the more I understand, the more of a student I am to the game, the more home runs I'll be able to make. But if I'm consistent, hitting the ball, running to first base, making it to second, making it to third, that's freaking awesome. And that's exactly what I want for you. So number 1, identify your relationship with money. Number 2, which is a part of number 1, is checking your credit. How is your credit? Check your score. I know that for some of us, it is so scary. Some of us will go so long in our lives never checking our score. I didn't. I was so fearful of doing that because I didn't want to look at my dirty laundry. I hated the thought. I went years and years and years without checking my credit score. And when I finally did, it really wasn't that scary. And I had a clear plan of how I was going to fix it and what I needed to do, and thus began a relationship with repairing my credit. I would like to invite you to download Credit Karma. This isn't sponsored by Credit Karma. Put the app on your phone and take a look at what your credit looks like and start to formulate a plan on how it needs to improve. Even if you have a great credit score, there's always room for improvement. So being a student of the game and working on that improvement. And I'll go into how I did all of these things in future episodes. The third thing I want you to do is take a look at your savings account. If you don't have a savings account, I would like to invite you to open one. If you do have a savings account, check to see how much return you're getting on your savings account. What is the interest that you're receiving for your savings account? Check to see if there's room for improvement on the amount of interest that you're getting on your money. This is so important because you could be saving a ton of money, but if you have a really low interest rate, then you are losing money because of inflation. We can expect for inflation to affect our money 2% annually. I spent so much time doing a ton of research on the highest interest I could receive on this money that I just pulled out because my bank isn't giving me proper interest on it. The bank that I found and did a ton of research on is Wealthfront. I opened an account and I moved all the money that I pulled from the stocks into that account so that I can begin to receive proper interest, meaning my money is not going to deflate. It's going to maintain its value and increase it by about 0.67%. You have to account 2% for annual inflation. And the bank account with the highest interest that I found with no fees and that I feel 100% comfortable putting my money in, it's FDIC insured, which is really important, is Wealthfront. I've also decided to take another portion of that money and invest it into stocks because intuitively I know it's what I need to do. So I'm currently researching a ton of stocks and I'm trying to pick the right ones for me and learning more and more and more every day about stocks because even though I've been learning about stocks since 2012, I still have so much more to learn and to understand. And for me personally, this is long-term investing. I'm not looking to day trade. I'm not looking to swing trade. I'm looking for long-term investments that can yield a higher return. We're going to get into those details in future abundance episodes, but for now, I just wanted to offer those 3 powerful ways of expansion. Number 1, understanding your relationship with money, where you're at, and how you need to repair it. Number 2, taking a look at your credit, building a strategy to expand it, even if it's good credit, or taking the step to look at it for the very first time. And number 3, taking a look at your savings account, whether you have one or you don't, making sure you're getting the best interest on your savings account or opening an account for the very first time and committing to putting some money into that account. I'm, of course, looking to bring on experts that know about money. Like I said, I'm not a financial expert, but I do want to share my personal journey with money and what is taking place, most especially because this is what I've been consumed with and I've been doing a lot of inner work. My intuition during my water fast made it very clear that this was the next area that I needed to master, my personal finances, and what was going to really help me expand in the ways that I want to expand, not just for myself, but of course for my family and for our future. I'm going to add links to Credit Karma and Wealthfront. You guys, this is not sponsored. I'm not going to get anything if you use the links. It's just what I'm using currently and I want to share with you all. But I do think it's really important for you to do your own research and begin to develop your personal relationship with money. I want to be here to support you as much as I can. I set a strong intention to fully understand abundance. And so this is what is taking place. It's not just the idea of magic flowing through our lives, but it's also logical, practical tools that we need to apply so that we can really build generational wealth. And I've always been one to share about my stocks. I've always been one to share about the income that I've made. I've always been really open with money. I've never hidden that because I understood the power of sharing this information. And I also understood how hoarding hoarding this information really hurts us more than helps us grow. And just because I'm sharing the tools that I'm using, it doesn't mean you're going to take anything away from me. That is totally, completely part of the lack mentality. I want for all of us to expand in all areas of our life. And if we want to live a healthy, fulfilling life, it's important for us to develop the relationship portion even more so, I think, than many other areas. Otherwise, the money relationship portion is going to be detrimental and hurt other areas of our life. I'm so excited to jump back into the abundance series on Let There Be Luz. I'm happy we're talking about this again. I've been taking a break from the podcast and it has felt amazing, but I have been consistent and on point with Patreon. So if you want more of Let There Be Luz, be sure to head over to Patreon. There's a direct link on my bio and join the family. I love you all so much. May the light within grow richer.